Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Warrant Officer Jared Goff. We warmly welcome the family of Captain Albert Raymond Bolton Wood, whose story will be told shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge members of the Navy Indigenous Development Program who are also joining us this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL and Services Club Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If able, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Captain Albert Raymond Bolton Wood. Albert Bolton Wood was born on the 3rd of August 1895, the second of 4 sons of Alexander and May Bolton Wood. His youngest brother, Frederick, lived only a few months, and the other 3 boys grew up in Dulwich Hill. Albert attended St Leonard's Public School. In 1905, his father, Alexander, a dentist from Glebe, was charged with paying maintenance for an illegitimate son, and the following year he died. After her husband's death, May Bolton Wood moved her family to North Sydney. At the outbreak of war, Albert was working for the Bedrio Rubber Company on George Street, Sydney. All 3 of the Bolton Wood brothers enlisted for service in the Australian Imperial Force during the First World War. The first was the youngest, Eric, who enlisted in November 1914 and served in the Camel Corps in the Middle East until 1918. The eldest brother, Lex, enlisted in February 1915 and was posted to the 13th Battalion. In May 1915, Albert applied for and was granted a commission in the 18th Battalion. He had long been an enthusiastic member of the cadets, attaining the rank of lieutenant. Second Lieutenant Bolton Wood arrived on Gallipoli in late August 1915, as the last of the major offensives were ending. He remained there for the rest of the campaign, and following the evacuation was promoted to lieutenant. He continued training in Egypt for nearly 3 months before being sent to fight on the Western Front. In June 1916, Bolton Wood participated in a number of raids in a quiet sector of the line. On the night of the 26th of June, he was one of a party which entered enemy trenches and captured 4 prisoners, killing many more. Despite being wounded during the raid, he remained on duty. A month later, the 18th Battalion participated in the heavy fighting around the French village of Pozières. On the 29th of July, Bolton Wood led a bombing platoon forward to reinforce another battalion. He was noted to have fought with the greatest gallantry even after he was wounded, and was largely responsible for the repulse of an enemy attack. Bolton Wood was later evacuated to England with severe wounds to his face and left hand. 1 month later, his brother, Lance Corporal Lex Bolton Wood, was killed in action at Mouquet Farm in almost the same area. Albert Bolton Wood remained in England for some time, recuperating from his wounds. In October 1916, he was transferred to France, working at the 7th Brigade headquarters for instructional purposes. A few weeks later, he was notified that he had been awarded the Military Cross for services rendered during the recent fighting at Pozières. In Australia, the Sydney Morning Herald of the 1st of November 1916 held 2 announcements. On page 11, an article celebrated the award of a Military Cross to Lieutenant Albert Bolton Wood for his courageous actions at Pozières. On page 12, the War Casualties column recorded the death in action of his older brother, Lance Corporal Robert Alex Bolton Wood. In December 1916, Bolton Wood returned to the 18th Battalion, and a month later was promoted to captain. The battalion was involved in the follow-up of German forces during their retreat to the Hindenburg Line, and was involved in particularly heavy fighting around Wallencourt in late February, and then took part in the Second Battle of Bullecourt in early May. Shortly afterwards, Captain Bolton Wood was transferred to the 20th Battalion. On the 20th of September 1917, the 20th Battalion took part in the Battle of Menin Road, east of Ypres in Belgium. The attack was successful along its entire front, but the advancing troops had to overcome formidable entrenched German defensive positions, including mutually supporting concrete pillbox strongpoints and resist fierce German counterattacks. The 1st and 2nd Divisions sustained over 5,000 casualties in the action, one of whom was Captain Albert Bolton Wood. Receiving a shell wound to the neck, he was evacuated to a clearing station and then to the Second Red Cross Hospital in Rouen. On the 5th of November 1917, Albert Boltonwood died of his wounds. He was buried at Saint-Sever Cemetery the following day. He was 22 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed beside the pool of reflection. You will see him in the back row, fourth from the right. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Captain Albert Raymond Boltonwood, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.